Deep in the Louisiana bayous, a veil of perpetual twilight shrouds the cypress trees like skeletal fingers. It's a place where the air reeks of decay and the Spanish moss seems to writhe like a living entity. I've always been drawn to this forsaken land, sensing that it holds secrets that would make your skin crawl. One name haunts these woods: Robert Sepehr. Sepehr is a figure shrouded in mystery, his true identity lost to the annals of time. Some say he was once a renowned occult scholar, but the whispers of his involvement with dark and malevolent forces drove him to the fringes of society. Others claim he's a former member of a cult that dabbled in the forbidden arts, leaving behind a trail of unspeakable terror. I've spent countless nights poring over dusty tomes and crumbling manuscripts, searching for any mention of Sepehr. His name is rarely spoken aloud, as if the very utterance would summon him from the depths of the bayou. Yet, I'm convinced that he's real, a ghostly figure lurking just beyond the tree line, waiting to claim his next victim. Local legends speak of Sepehr's unholy rituals, which supposedly took place under the light of the full moon. It's said that those who stumbled upon these ceremonies were forever changed, their minds shattered by the eldritch horrors that lurked within the shadows. I've heard tales of participants who returned from these rituals with eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 midnights, their skin as white as the cypress bark, and their smiles twisted into grotesque grins. I've come to realize that Sepehr's existence is tied to the very fabric of the bayou. The trees seem to lean in when I speak his name, as if they're sharing a dark secret. The wind carries an otherworldly melody on certain nights, a haunting serenade that sends shivers down my spine. It's as if Sepehr's presence is woven into the very essence of this forsaken place. I'm not sure what draws me to this cursed land, or what I hope to find by exploring its depths. All I know is that I must uncover the truth behind Robert Sepehr's sinister rituals, no matter how terrifying the consequences may be. As I delved deeper into my research, rumors began to spread like wildfire through the bayou's small communities. Whispers of Sepehr's true nature reached me from distant towns, each one more unsettling than the last. Some claimed he was a demonologist, conjuring forth malevolent entities to do his bidding. Others whispered that he'd made a pact with a malefactor from another realm, trading pieces of his soul for forbidden knowledge. Local hunters spoke of strange noises in the dead of night, disembodied screams and wails that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the bayou. They'd catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of their eye, only to turn and find nothing but the cypress trees looming like specters. A group of fishermen reported seeing a figure standing on the water's edge, its back to them as it watched the moon rise over the bayou. The figure never turned, but the fishermen claimed that Sepehr's presence was accompanied by an unspeakable stench, a mixture of decay and rot that seemed to sear their nostrils. I began to notice strange symbols etched into the trunks of ancient cypress trees, pulsing with a malevolent energy. Some were shaped like stars or moons, while others resembled twisted, nightmarish creatures that defied explanation. The air around these symbols seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly power, as if they were conduits for some dark and ancient force. People began to avoid the bayou, fearful of crossing paths with Sepehr's rumored minions or stumbling upon one of his twisted rituals. I, however, felt an inexorable pull towards this forsaken place, driven by a morbid curiosity that threatened to consume me whole. As the nights grew darker and more oppressive, I started to experience strange visions, fleeting glimpses of Sepehr's face, its features twisted into a grotesque grimace. The visions left me shaken, but also drawn deeper into the heart of the bayou, where the darkness seemed to be waiting for me like an open door. I began to wonder if I was being lured towards some terrible fate, or if Sepehr's presence was a harbinger of something far more sinister, a signal that I was about to become a part of his twisted world. As I delved deeper into the heart of the bayou, I began to receive strange and ominous messages. It started with a single, cryptic letter that arrived at my doorstep, adorned with a symbol that seemed to be from an ancient language. The message was brief, yet unsettling. You have been chosen to participate in a ritual of great significance. At first, I dismissed the letter as a prank or a manifestation of my own paranoia. But as the days passed and more letters arrived, each one bearing the same symbol and a growing sense of urgency, I realized that something was amiss. The letters were always signed with a single word: Sepehr. I tried to ignore them, but the words lingered in my mind like a specter. The invitation seemed to be calling to me, drawing me deeper into the bayou's heart. I began to feel an inexplicable sense of duty, as if I had been summoned for a purpose that only I could fulfill. The final letter arrived on the eve of the summer solstice, its words dripping with an air of foreboding. Join me beneath the stars, and together we shall unlock the secrets of the cosmos. I knew then that I had to attend the ritual. I couldn't shake the feeling that Sepehr's presence was not just a rumor, but a palpable force that lurked in the shadows. The night before the solstice, I found myself standing at the edge of the bayou, gazing out into the darkness. The air was heavy with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of Sepehr's gaze upon me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. As I stepped into the bayou's heart, the air grew thick with anticipation. The cypress trees loomed above me, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for the stars. A faint mist rose from the water, casting an eerie gloom over the landscape. I could feel Sepehr's presence all around me, his eyes watching me from the shadows. The sound of whispers carried on the wind, a soft susurrus that seemed to be speaking in hushed tones. I followed the sound, my footsteps quiet on the waterlogged earth. The mist grew thicker until I could hardly see more than a few feet ahead. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the fog. It was Sepehr, his eyes blazing with an otherworldly intensity. He beckoned me closer, his hand extended like a bony finger. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I approached him. He led me deeper into the bayou, the trees growing taller and more twisted with every step. We walked for what felt like hours, the only sound the soft lapping of the water against the shore. Finally, Sepehr stopped in front of a clearing, its center dominated by a massive cypress tree. The air was heavy with incense, and I could feel a strange energy building up inside me. Sepehr gestured for me to enter the clearing, his eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. I hesitated for a moment, but something compelled me to follow him. As I stepped into the clearing, the world around me seemed to dissolve away, leaving only the cypress tree and Sepehr's face looming above me. As I stood before the cypress tree, Sepehr began to gesture to a series of strange symbols etched into its trunk. They pulsed with a faint, otherworldly light, and seemed to be drawing me in with an irresistible force. The symbols appeared to be some sort of language, but I couldn't decipher their meaning. Sepehr's eyes gleamed with excitement as he began to recite a phrase in a tongue I didn't understand. The words sent shivers down my spine, and I felt a creeping sense of dread. Suddenly, the air around us began to distort and ripple, like the surface of a pond struck by a stone. A low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Sepehr's eyes flashed with an intense light, and he raised his hands to the sky. The symbols on the cypress tree seemed to be responding to his words, pulsating with an energy that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. I felt myself being drawn into their rhythm, my mind succumbing to a strange, hypnotic trance. As the hum reached a fever pitch, Sepehr's eyes locked onto mine, and I saw something there that made my blood run cold, a deep, malevolent intent that seemed to be saying, "You will join me now forevermore." The world around us erupted into chaos as the symbols on the cypress tree exploded in a blinding flash of light. When my vision returned, Sepehr was gone, and I was left standing alone in the clearing, the only sound the distant echo of the hum still resonating through the air. I stumbled forward, disoriented and confused, as if I'd been pulled through a vortex into another dimension. When my vision finally cleared, I found myself in a dimly lit chamber deep within the bayou's heart. The air was thick with incense, and the walls seemed to be made of some sort of twisted, nightmarish wood. Sepehr stood before me, his eyes blazing with an otherworldly intensity. He gestured for me to follow him, leading me through a series of twisting corridors that seemed to shift and writhe like living things. We finally arrived at a large, stone door adorned with the same strange symbols I'd seen on the cypress tree. Sepehr produced a small, ornate key from his pocket and unlocked the door, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. Inside, I saw a group of robed figures gathered around a glowing, crystal orb. They turned to face me as I entered, their eyes empty and soulless. Sepehr gestured for me to join them, and I felt a sense of dread wash over me as I realized that I was about to undergo some sort of twisted initiation ritual. The robed figures parted, revealing a large stone altar at the center of the room. On the altar lay a strange, glowing artifact, a small crystal pendant that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Sepehr approached me, his eyes burning with an intense, almost fanatical fervor. He grasped my wrist and pressed the pendant into my palm, saying a single word in my ear: "Welcome." As he did, I felt a surge of dark energy course through my veins, as if I'd been infected by some sort of malevolent force. The robed figures closed in around me, their faces twisted into grotesque, inhuman grins. And then, everything went black. As I slowly regained consciousness, I found myself in a dimly lit room filled with the sound of distant whispers. The air was thick with an eerie, unsettling energy that seemed to seep into my very bones. I tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness washed over me, forcing me back onto the bed. Sepehr stood beside me, his eyes gleaming with an unnerving intensity. "You are one of us now," he said, his voice dripping with malevolent enthusiasm. "You will join us in our eternal dance." I tried to speak, but my voice was barely a whisper. "What have you done to me?" Sepehr's smile grew wider, revealing razor-sharp teeth. "I have shown you the truth," he hissed. "The world is not what it seems. There are forces beyond human comprehension that shape our reality." As he spoke, the whispers in the room grew louder, taking on a life of their own. They seemed to be coming from all directions, echoing off the walls and ceiling. I felt my mind reeling, struggling to comprehend the twisted revelation Sepehr was imparting. Suddenly, the door creaked open and a figure entered the room. It was one of the robed figures from the initiation ritual, their eyes empty and soulless. They approached me with an unnerving deliberation, their movements slow and stiff. "We have been waiting for you," they said in a voice that sent shivers down my spine. "You will be our instrument of darkness." The figure reached out a bony hand and touched my forehead, and I felt a jolt of electricity run through my brain. Everything went black once more. As I lay unconscious, I began to experience fragmented visions of Sepehr's past. I saw him as a young man, standing in front of an ancient temple deep in the heart of the bayou. He was surrounded by robed figures, their faces hidden behind masks of twisted wood and bone. They spoke in hushed tones, their words carrying on the wind. Sepehr listened intently, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. Suddenly, he turned to face the camera, and I saw that he was holding a small, leather-bound book. The cover was adorned with strange symbols and markings that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. "I have found it," he said, his voice low and urgent. "The key to unlocking the secrets of the universe." As he spoke, the vision shifted and I saw Sepehr standing in a dark, abandoned church. The air was thick with the scent of decay and rot. He was surrounded by candles, their flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. In the center of the room, a large stone altar loomed, adorned with symbols of dark magic. Sepehr stood before it, his eyes fixed on some unseen point beyond my line of sight. "The ritual is complete," he said, his voice dripping with malevolent triumph. "The gates of hell have been opened." The vision faded, and I was left lying in the dimly lit room, my mind reeling from the revelations. I knew that I had to find a way to stop Sepehr, but I wasn't sure where to start. I knew that I had to get inside the cult if I was going to stop Sepehr, so I came up with a plan. I would pose as a new recruit, eager to learn more about the cult's teachings and practices. I spent weeks researching the cult, learning their rituals and symbols, and preparing myself for the moment when I would be allowed to join. Finally, the day arrived. I was led to the cult's headquarters, a decrepit old mansion deep in the bayou. The air was thick with the scent of incense and decay. I was greeted by one of the cult leaders, a tall, gaunt figure with eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. "Welcome, brother," he said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "We have been expecting you." He led me on a tour of the mansion, showing me the various rituals and practices that the cult followed. I listened intently, committing every detail to memory. As we walked, I noticed that the walls were adorned with strange symbols, seemingly carved into the very wood itself. They seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, and I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. We finally arrived at the heart of the mansion, a large chamber filled with robed figures gathered around a large stone altar. Sepehr stood at the center, his eyes fixed on me as if he could see right through to my very soul. "This is it," he said, his voice dripping with excitement. "The moment of truth." The cult leader gestured to one of the robed figures who stepped forward and held out a small, crystal pendant. Sepehr took it, his eyes flashing with an otherworldly energy. And then everything went black. As I came to, I found myself standing in a dark, deserted alleyway. The air was thick with the scent of decay and rot. I stumbled forward, my heart racing with every step. Suddenly, I heard a voice behind me. "You shouldn't be here," it said. I spun around, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to come from all around me, echoing off the walls. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "I am Sepehr," he replied, his voice dripping with malice. "And you, brother, are a pawn in our game." I took a step forward, my fists clenched. "You're not going to use me for your twisted plans," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Sepehr laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "Oh, but I am," he said, "and soon you will be mine." He gestured to one side and I saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was one of my friends, their eyes black as coal, their skin pale as bone. "This is your friend," Sepehr said, "one of our own." My friend took a step forward, their eyes fixed on me with an unspeakable hunger. "We've been waiting for you," they said, their voice barely above a whisper. "It's time to join us." I felt a wave of horror wash over me as my friend reached out and grabbed my arm. "No," I screamed, trying to pull away. But it was too late. My friend's grip was like steel, and I was dragged into the shadows, forced to confront the truth about Sepehr's cult. As I was dragged deeper into the cult's lair, I felt my grip on reality begin to slip. The walls seemed to close in around me, and the air grew thick with an unholy presence. My friend, now a mindless drone, led me through twisting corridors of darkness, each step taking me further from the world I once knew. We finally arrived at a large chamber filled with strange artifacts and relics. In the center of the room, a large stone pedestal supported a glowing crystal orb. Sepehr stood before it, his eyes blazing with an otherworldly energy. "This is the key to ultimate power," he said, his voice dripping with madness. "With this orb, we will conquer all." My friend reached out and grasped the orb, their eyes flashing with an unnatural light. The room erupted into chaos as the cult members began to chant and dance around us. I tried to resist, but my body seemed to move of its own accord, drawn into the madness like a moth to flame. Sepehr's voice grew louder, more frantic, until it was almost deafening. "Join us," he screamed. "Join us, and together we will rule the world." The last thing I remember is feeling my mind shatter, my sense of self torn apart by the cult's twisted rituals. When I came to, I was lying on the floor, my head throbbing with pain. Sepehr stood over me, a look of disappointment etched on his face. "You should have joined us," he said. "Now you will never be free." As I struggled to regain my sanity, I realized that the cult's legacy was far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. Sepehr had been searching for a way to unlock the secrets of the universe, and his twisted rituals had unleashed a dark and ancient power upon the world. The crystal orb, now glowing with an eerie light, seemed to be pulsing with an otherworldly energy. I knew that I had to destroy it, but Sepehr's grip on my friend was too strong. They were now a mindless puppet, forced to do his bidding. Sepehr cackled maniacally as he revealed the true horror of his plan. The cult had been searching for a way to merge human and supernatural realms, creating an army of mind-controlled minions that would do their bidding. I knew I had to act fast, but my own sanity was slipping away. The lines between reality and madness were blurring, and I wasn't sure what was real anymore. As I gazed into the orb's depths, I saw visions of a dark future, one where humanity was enslaved by the cult's twisted magic. I knew that I had to stop Sepehr, but at what cost? The fate of the world hung in the balance, and I was the only one who could save it. But would I be able to resist the cult's curse, or would I succumb to its madness?